to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Gregg, Senior Partner at McKinsey and Company. For Black Friday coverage, we're going to discuss everything ranging from the strength of the consumer and what we're seeing in terms of promotional activity. Brian, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thanks for having me, Jill.
All right, let's talk about the strength of the consumer. Really has been underpinning what we've seen in terms of the economy normalizing again to pre-COVID levels.
It's been quite startling. In fact, I mean, we just completed our 2021 holiday shopping report, and that is by far the biggest headline. Consumer sentiment is high, optimism is up. In fact, we expect to see as much as 7% increase in spending this holiday season versus last, as much as 9% this year versus pre-pandemic levels. So it's quite impressive.
Let's talk about supply chain constraints and the impact it's going to have to consumers getting their inventory and, of course, retail and margins.
Yeah, the supply chain shocks are real. And what's interesting is this is not just a retailer problem. Consumers get it. In fact, one of the biggest things we've seen in our holiday shopping report is consumers are starting their holiday shopping way earlier than before. 50% of consumers have started in early October for this holiday season. And of that group, a third of them have already finished 3/4 of their holiday shopping. So not to put any pressure on you, but it's not even December. And the reason for this is they're worried about product being available. They're worried about shipping delays. And so this is a real problem, and retailers are going to have to manage through it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm usually the person who's shopping up until Christmas Eve, and I've gotten at least half of my stuff done. So it is real. Let's talk about Black Friday sales and promos and how they've accelerated. I've been getting texts and emails, very personalized, by the way, as early as 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is exactly what consumers themselves are reporting. What they did in our report is not only are they shopping sooner, but they are out there, whether it's on digital channels, in store, and those retailers who are most attuned to the data that are seeing what consumers are doing, they're taking advantage. And so they are realizing that this is a moment of time, that this is not just a December period. This is not just a Black Friday. This is truly a 3-month holiday period we're now in. And they're gearing up for it in the ways that you're observing in your own email inbox.
What about trends for holiday 2021?
Well, we're seeing a couple things. In addition to the big spend that I mentioned, there's a lot of omni-channel shopping. A lot of shoppers are actually starting on social channels. So the TikToks of the world, the YouTubes, the Instagrams, this is where a lot of shopping begins, and it's getting pulled through to the store. Second thing that's very interesting this holiday period is there isn't as much loyalty as we would expect. In fact, a lot of what we'd call a shock to loyalty. And that's because of these supply chain constraints. Only 13% of consumers are willing to wait for a product to be in stock. They're going to move to the next retailer to find what they need. And so these sort of trends are quite unique, and they're going to motivate retailers to change themselves.
What are your thoughts on the consumer in 2022? We know they've been strong in terms of goods for 2021. It'll be interesting to see how that shifts, once we start to get more back out there and on the other side of the pandemic.
Yeah, well, if we've learned anything over the last year and a half during this crazy period, is that consumers, particularly in the US, are quite resilient. And some of the behaviors that they had to take on in the last year and a half have stuck. E-commerce continues to surge. This omni-channel I'm talking about with digital and physical coming together is a real thing. And 75% of consumers switched to brand or retailer that they love during this time, and they're sticking with that new brand. So categories that are really core to the home and the home body economy, we expect to continue to do well. That emerging trend has not swayed. And we think the sticking behavior of these new behaviors that the consumers have showed are going to continue.
All right, Brian, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thanks, Jill.